Welcome to the world of sci-fi stories, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the channel. Enjoy the listening. The apex species of the galaxy had no rivals, until humanity rose. A galaxy in fear, the galaxy was once a place of endless possibilities, a vast space filled with thriving civilizations, but something had changed. A shadow had fallen over the stars and fear spread across the universe. Like wildfire, the apex predators had emerged. These creatures were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They were colossal, their strength beyond imagination, and their speed unimaginable. They could tear through entire fleets of ships with a single swipe of their claws. No species was safe from their wrath. The predators were known to attack and destroy entire planets without warning, leaving nothing but death in their wake for centuries. These apex predators roamed the galaxy unchecked. The other species tried to fight back, but they were no match. The predators' power seemed limitless. Entire armies were wiped out in hours, and the brave heroes who stood up to them became nothing more than legends. Some claimed that the predators were invincible, but nothing could defeat them. These terrifying creatures ruled over the galaxy with an iron grip, and no one dared to challenge their authority. Many species lived in constant fear, hiding in the deepest corners of their worlds, hoping the predators would pass them by. Those who were unfortunate enough to attract the attention of the predators faced certain doom. Cities were wiped off the map in moments, and the survivors were either enslaved or forced into hiding. The galaxy's great empires, once proud and powerful, were now mere shadows of their former selves. The hope of the galaxy was fading, and many wondered if anyone would ever be able to stand against the predators. In the midst of this chaos, one empire stood apart, the Empire of the Taurians. A proud race of warriors had fought the predators in countless battles, but despite their strength and courage, they too were slowly being crushed under the weight of the predators' might. Every battle they fought ended in defeat, and the once great empire was losing ground with each passing day. The Tones were not alone in their struggle. Other civilizations across the galaxy were also doing their best to resist the predators' relentless onslaught. The peaceful Alair, with their advanced technology, attempted to create shields strong enough to protect their cities. The fierce sirens, known for their speed and agility, tried to outsmart the predators and set traps to catch them off guard, but all their efforts were in vain. The predators were too powerful, and no matter what the galaxy did, the tide of destruction seemed unstoppable. As the years passed, the galaxy began to lose hope. The predators had grown bolder, taking control of vast swaths of territory. Entire systems fell into their grasp, and no one seemed to have the power to stop them. Those who once believed in unity and strength now faced the harsh reality that their worlds would soon fall under the predators' rule. In the darkest corners of the galaxy, whispers began to spread. Some believed the predators had a weakness in their armor. Others thought that there was a force out there strong enough to challenge them. But these were just rumors. Stories passed between fearful civilizations. No one knew for certain if there was any truth to them, and those who dared to believe in hope risked being seen as naive fools. But the galaxy could not stay silent forever. One species, a race of explorers, had begun to notice something strange. The humans, an unassuming species from a distant, barely known planet, had begun to rise in the galactic ranks. Their ships were small and relatively weak compared to the mighty fleets of the other civilizations, but there was something different about them. They were survivors. The humans had never known the predators in their own corner of the galaxy, but they had heard the stories. They knew what the galaxy had become. They knew of the hopelessness that had settled into the hearts of every species, but they didn't seem afraid. Instead, they were driven by something else, a desire to explore, to learn, and to push beyond the limits set by the predators. It started with simple trade and peaceful diplomacy. The humans, unlike other species, didn't try to resist the predators at first. They simply sought knowledge. They reached out to different races and shared their technology, never once showing fear of the looming threat. And for a while it worked. Their peaceful nature allowed them to blend in unnoticed by the apex predators. But as they ventured farther into the galaxy, their presence began to stir something the galaxy had not seen for years. Hope. There was a spark in the humans that made others take notice. Unlike the other species, they didn't sit back in fear. Instead, they started learning everything they could about the predators. Their engineers worked day and night developing new technologies and strategies. The human desire for survival and their ability to think outside the box was unlike any other. It wasn't long before their presence caught the attention of the apex predators. The predators who had grown accustomed to ruling without challenge found themselves facing something new. They had always crushed any resistance with ease, but the humans were different. They didn't back down. They didn't run. For the first time in ages, the predators found themselves faced with an enemy that wasn't afraid to stand up to them. This was just the beginning. The galaxy, once gripped by fear, now saw the first glimmer of hope. And in the heart of the humans, a new empire was quietly being forged, an empire that would soon rise to challenge the unstoppable predators. The first encounter, the humans had never expected to be thrust into the heart of the galaxy's struggle. Their exploration missions were supposed to be simple, peaceful ventures to discover new planets, to share knowledge, and to expand their reach. But that all changed when their ship, the Odyssey, ventured too far into predator territory. The first encountered was a nightmare. The Odyssey, a sleek and advanced human vessel, was on a routine scouting mission near an uncharted star system. The crew had been instructed to stay within the boundaries of safer regions, but curiosity and the desire to explore pushed them beyond what was known. It was a decision that would soon haunt them. As the ship drifted deeper into unknown space, and eerie silence filled the vessel, sensors began to malfunction and strange signals started to pulse from the darkness. The crew thought it was an anomaly, something to investigate later, but the truth was far worse. They were being watched without warning. The Odyssey was struck by a wave of gravitational force. The ship rattled violently, as if it had been caught in the grip of an invisible hand. The crew scrambled to stabilize the ship, but their efforts were futile. The Odyssey shuddered and groaned as something massive, powerful, and unseen seemed to circle them. Then it appeared. The creature was unlike anything the humans had ever seen. Its form was enormous, cloaked in shadow, its body shifting and rippling with unnatural grace. The sheer size of the predator dwarfed the human ship, casting a dark shadow over the vessel. Its scales gleamed in the dim light of the distant stars, its eyes glowing with a cold, predatory intelligence. The creature's enormous wings unfurled, creating gusts of wind strong enough to send the Odyssey tumbling through space. The humans were paralyzed with fear. They had heard rumors about the apex predators, but no one had believed the stories. They were just that, stories, whispered tales from survivors. But now, face to face with the truth, there was no denying the terror that gripped them. The predator's presence was suffocating, and the realization set in: this was no mere animal. This was a predator with intelligence, with a desire to hunt and destroy. For a moment, the crew simply stared at the creature, unsure of what to do. The predator's movements were slow and deliberate, as though it was savoring the fear of its prey. Its massive tail whipped back and forth, striking the Odyssey and sending sparks flying from the ship's outer hull. The captain, a seasoned veteran of space exploration named Captain Ara Voss, took a deep breath and composed herself. She had faced many dangers in her career, but nothing like this. The predator was not like any creature they had encountered before. It wasn't a mindless beast. It was a hunter with a single purpose: to kill. All hands prepare for evasive maneuvers, Captain Voss shouted, trying to steady her voice. Get to the weapon systems now. But there was no time. The predator struck again, its jaws snapping shut with a deafening roar. The ship shuddered as the creature's massive claws scraped against the metal, tearing through the Odyssey's defenses. With ease, crew members screamed as alarms blared through the ship, signaling critical damage. Despite their best efforts, the humans were helpless. The predator seemed unstoppable, its strength far beyond anything the humans had ever encountered. The Odyssey was no match for its power. It was clear they were at the mercy of a creature that had never known defeat. As the predator prepared for the final strike, the human survival instincts kicked in. They activated the emergency escape pods, ejecting the remaining crew into the void of space. One by one, the pod shot away from the doomed ship, each carrying the survivors toward the nearest planet. Captain Voss was one of the last to escape. As she looked back at the destroyed Odyssey, a deep sense of loss washed over her. They had barely survived, and they were no closer to understanding what had just happened. But one thing was certain: the galaxy's predators were real, and they were far more terrifying than anyone had ever imagined. The escape pods landed on a nearby planet, a barren world orbiting a distant star. It was a desolate place, with no signs of life or civilization. The survivors, bruised and shaken, took refuge in the planet's caves, using their limited resources to try and repair their communication systems. The cold reality of their situation began to sink in. They had to warn the galaxy. The predators were coming, and humanity had just become a target. Captain Voss, sitting in the darkened cave with her crew, realized that they were no longer mere explorers. They had unknowingly stepped into a war. The galaxy was a place of fear, and the humans had now found themselves in the middle of a battle for survival. But there was a fire burning inside Captain Voss. She refused to let the predators win. She knew the humans had something the predators didn't: determination. They had the will to survive, and that would be their greatest weapon. The first encounter had shaken them, but it had also ignited something deeper. The humans had come face to face with the galaxy's greatest threat, and they were not running. They would fight. They would resist, and they would find a way to stand against the unstoppable predators preparing for war. The days that followed the harrowing encounter were marked by quiet determination. On the barren planet where the humans had crash-landed, the survivors quickly understood that their mere survival was not enough. The galaxy was teeming with threats, but the apex predators were a different kind of enemy, one that would require more than just escape to defeat. Captain Aravos, shaken but resolute, gathered her crew to discuss their next steps. The escape pods had landed in a rocky, desolate region, far from any known colonies or star systems. It was a harsh environment, but it provided them with the time and isolation they needed to think and plan. As the captain stood before her team, a spark of hope began to grow in her heart. They had survived the encounter, and that meant they were capable of something greater. We've seen what they're capable of. Captain Voss began, her voice steady and commanding. The predators are powerful, yes, but they are not invincible. If we're going to survive, we need to learn everything we can about them, and we need to fight back together. The crew was silent for a moment, digesting her words. Some were still in shock from the loss of the Odyssey, others fearful of what lay ahead. But slowly a shared resolve began to emerge. The humans were not alone. The galaxy was vast, filled with countless species, and many had suffered under the reign of the apex predators for centuries. Perhaps if they worked together, they could stand a chance. Captain Voss assigned tasks to her crew, directing them to work on repairing their communication systems. They had limited resources, but they had to send a message to the galaxy. They couldn't take on the predators alone. They needed help. It wasn't long before they managed to establish a weak signal, and through it, they sent a distress call to every corner of the galaxy, to any civilizations listening. This is Captain Aravos of the human ship Odyssey. We've encountered the apex predators. They are real, and they are unstoppable. We need allies. We need your help. The message broadcasted. The response, though delayed, came quicker than expected. The galaxy's smaller, lesser-known factions had heard of the predators, and many of them had lived in fear for years. Some were eager to help, but many were also hesitant. After all, they had seen countless alliances crumble before the overwhelming power of the apex predators. Who were the humans to think they could make a difference? But despite the doubts, there were those who responded with hope. The herons, a species known for their agility and stealth, offered their expertise in guerrilla tactics. The peaceful Altari, with their advanced technology and keen minds, began sending plans for weapons that could potentially counter the predators' immense strength. The Taurian Empire, once a proud force that had been crushed by the predators, promised to provide what remained of their fleet. Small but fierce, it was an unlikely alliance, but one born from necessity. The humans, with their youthful determination and untested courage, were willing to try anything. They weren't giving up. Meanwhile, the survivors worked tirelessly rebuilding what they could from the wreckage of the Odyssey. It wasn't much, but every scrap of technology, every piece of equipment was vital. The humans learned quickly, adapting their old methods of warfare to the new alien technologies they were receiving. They focused on creating weapons that could pierce the tough hide of the apex predators, developing new armor and energy shields to protect their ships. With each day that passed, their forces grew stronger, their resolve harder, but more than anything, it was the humans' creativity that made them stand out. They didn't have the raw power that the predators possessed, nor did they have centuries of war experience, but what they did have was a fierce will to survive, to outthink their opponents. As the preparations continued, the humans knew one thing: they could never match the predators in sheer strength, but they could win through resourcefulness and strategy. Captain Voss wasn't just leading a resistance, she was organizing a revolution. They had to fight smart, not hard. While the humans were busy preparing, they learned more about the predators' culture and their terrifying methods of domination. The predators, it turned out, were not mindless beasts. They had an organized, ruthless hierarchy, and they hunted not only for food, but for power and control. Their method of conquest was simple: destroy everything, take what they wanted, and move on. The predators had no use for diplomacy, no room for mercy. They saw all other species as inferior, unworthy of survival. But as the humans uncovered more about the predators' operations, they discovered something that could be their key to victory. There was one weakness: the predators had a fatal flaw in their survival instincts. The apex predators had always relied on fear to control the galaxy. Their strength was their primary weapon, and they used it to crush any opposition. But the humans had learned that there was more to fighting than brute force. The predators had never faced a species willing to outthink them, to challenge them, using their own methods of terror against them. The humans began to experiment with psychological warfare. They would strike in unexpected places, create chaos where it was least expected, and use the predators' reliance on fear against them. By creating an environment where the predators couldn't predict their moves, the humans could force them into making mistakes. It wasn't a guaranteed victory, but it was a plan, and for the first time since the humans had encountered the predators, there was a glimmer of hope. They would no longer be passive victims. The humans would be the ones to set the terms of this war. With the new knowledge, they had gathered, Captain Voss and her crew began preparing for the first major confrontation with the predators. It would be a battle unlike any the galaxy had seen, one that would determine whether humanity would survive or be wiped out like so many others before them. The galaxy's greatest predators had met their match in humans, and they would soon learn that the most dangerous enemy was not the one with the most power, but the one with the will to fight. The battle begins. The day had finally come. The preparations were over. The alliances had been formed, and the humans, alongside their newfound allies, were ready to face the apex predators head-on. The first wave of attack would be unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. It was not a traditional battle, but a coordinated strike designed to catch the predators off guard and strike fear into their hearts. The galaxy's greatest predators, once so confident in their unchallenged reign, would now face a foe unlike any they had ever known. Captain Aravos stood at the command center aboard the human flagship, the Phoenix. She gazed at the holographic map of the galaxy, her eyes fixed on the predator strongholds. The plan was bold, too bold for some, but it was their only chance. Her crew, once shaken, was now determined and focused. Each member of the crew had spent countless hours training, strategizing, and working together with their allies. Today, they would make their stand. The first strike would target one of the predators' outer colonies. It was a decoy, designed to lure the predators into a trap. The humans and their allies had been studying the predators' movements, learning their patterns, and exploiting their arrogance. The apex predators believed they were invincible, that no one would dare challenge them. It was this overconfidence that the humans aimed to exploit. The attack was swift. A fleet of human and allied ships, equipped with the new weapons and shields they had developed, launched a surprise assault on the predator colony. The first moments of the battle were chaotic. The predators, caught off guard, scrambled to defend their territory. The human ships, though smaller and less powerful, moved with agility and precision. They struck quickly, causing confusion among the predator forces. The predators' enormous warships, once feared for their sheer size and strength, now seemed cumbersome and slow compared to the nimble human ships. The predators retaliated with furious force. Their ships fired massive energy blasts, tearing apart entire fleets with each shot. But the humans were prepared. They had developed energy shields that absorbed and deflected the predators' attacks. The Phoenix and its fleet moved as one, weaving in and out of the predators' fire, striking with deadly accuracy and speed. For a while it seemed like the humans had the upper hand. The predators, caught off guard and facing unexpected resistance, were struggling to maintain control. But the battle was far from over. The predators quickly regrouped, calling in reinforcements from nearby systems. Their forces were vast and relentless, and they were not willing to lose to this new unexpected enemy. As the humans pushed forward, Captain Voss could feel the weight of the battle bearing down on her. She had seen many fights in her time, but nothing like this. The predators fought with an unrelenting fury, their every move calculated to crush their enemies. But the humans had something the predators didn't: a deep-rooted belief that they could win. That belief was contagious, spreading through the ranks of every soldier, every crew member. They weren't just fighting to survive. They were fighting for their future, for the future of the galaxy. The battle raged for hours. The predator fleet was vast, but the humans were smart. They used the predators' own tactics against them, setting traps, ambushing the predators in places where they least expected it. The psychological warfare that had been planned for months began to take effect. The predators, once so sure of their invincibility, were now second-guessing their every move. The humans weren't just attacking, they were making the predators doubt themselves. But the predators were relentless. Their ships were powerful, their weapons devastating. As the battle continued, the humans began to suffer casualties. The Phoenix was struck by a massive energy blast, knocking out several of its systems. For a moment, it seemed as though the tide was turning against them. But Captain Voss was not about to give up. She ordered her crew to push forward to continue the attack. In the heart of the battle, the pivotal moment arrived. A large predator warship, more massive than anything the humans had faced, emerged from the darkness. Its weapons were unlike anything the humans had ever seen, and it began to tear through the human fleet with terrifying efficiency. The human shields were no match for the power of this warship. But then, a surprise maneuver. A small group of human ships, using the knowledge they had gained about predator tactics, flanked the massive warship. They struck at its weak points, targeting the energy cores and causing massive explosions that sent shockwaves through the predator vessel. The warship faltered, its firepower reduced. It wasn't destroyed, but it was weakened enough for the humans to press the advantage. With their strongest warship damaged, the predators' confidence began to crack. For the first time, they were losing. The predator fleet, disorganized and unsure, began to retreat. The humans, despite their smaller numbers and limited resources, had pushed the predators back. The battle, though far from over, was a turning point. Captain Voss stood at the command center, watching as the predator fleet retreated into the darkness. The battle had been hard-fought, but they had won. The humans had faced the apex predators and lived to tell the tale. But this was just the beginning. The predators would not back down easily. The humans would need to prepare for the next wave and the next. But for now, they had accomplished something no one had thought possible. They had struck fear into the hearts of the galaxy's most terrifying creatures. As the survivors began to regroup and repair their ships, Captain Voss allowed herself a moment of victory. They had done it. The predators had been challenged, and they had been forced to retreat. The galaxy would never be the same again. The humans had proven that even the mightiest of enemies could be defeated, and the predators, they would soon learn that humans were not so easily defeated. Turning the tide, the battle had been a significant victory for the humans, but Captain Aravos knew it was just the beginning. The predators, though retreating for the time being, would not simply vanish. The galaxy's apex predators had been pushed back, but they were not defeated. Their empire was vast, and their thirst for dominance Unquenchable, the humans' first success had rattled them, but it had also brought the Predator's full wrath to bear in the aftermath of the battle. The human fleet, though battered, regrouped. The Phoenix and its allies began repairs, while the survivors worked tirelessly to maintain the fragile momentum they had gained. The Predators were regrouping as well, calling upon more reinforcements, more resources to crush the newfound resistance. Captain Voss knew that to maintain their edge, the humans would need to press forward to do something the Predators did not expect. "We've proven we can win," Voss said, her voice firm, as she addressed the gathered fleet. Commanders in the war room aboard the Phoenix, but this is not a war of strength. It's a war of survival and intelligence. We have one advantage. The Predators underestimate us. We've already broken their illusion of invincibility. Now we strike at their weakest link. Her words struck a chord with her crew. The humans were fighting a war not just with weapons, but with their ability to think outside the box. They had seen the Predators' reliance on brute strength, their overconfidence, and their reliance on terror. The key to defeating them wasn't just to outfight them, but to outthink them. They had to destroy the Predators' confidence, their morale, and make them question their own power. The humans had spent the last few days studying the Predator ships, their tactics, and their weaknesses. One crucial discovery had been made: a single flaw in the Predators' war machine, their central command structure. The Predators' empire relied heavily on a single massive space station, a heart of sorts from which they directed their vast fleets. If the humans could destroy or disable that station, they could the entire Predator fleet. The decision was made: the humans would launch a daring raid on the heart of the Predator fleet. A small fast strike team, equipped with the most advanced weapons and shields they had, would infiltrate the station and destroy its core. The rest of the fleet would provide a diversion, keeping the Predators occupied while the strike team carried out their mission. The operation was risky. The Predator station was heavily guarded, surrounded by layers of defense, and any mistake would mean certain death. But the humans had no choice. They could not afford to wait for the Predators to regroup fully. If they wanted to keep their momentum, they had to act now. Captain Voss stood at the command center, watching the preparations unfold. Her mind raced as the plans were put into motion. She knew the risks, she knew the lives that would be lost, but the success of this mission would change everything. The Predators had believed themselves untouchable, and it was time to shatter that belief. The strike team, led by the fearless Lieutenant Kieran Cole, boarded a stealth shuttle. They had no time for hesitation. This was a one-way mission, a gamble for the survival of humanity and their allies. The shuttle's advanced cloaking technology made it nearly invisible to enemy sensors, but even that wouldn't guarantee success. The Predators had become more vigilant after the last battle, and any slip-up could give away their position. As the team made its way toward the Predator station, tension filled the air. The silence of space was deafening, the only sound coming from the quiet hum of the shuttle's engines. Lieutenant Cole's voice was calm but full of purpose as he spoke to his team over the comms: "Stay sharp. We hit fast, hit hard, and get out. We've trained for this. We know our mission. We do this for the galaxy." The Predator station loomed ahead, a massive structure bathed in the glow of a nearby star. It was heavily guarded, but the humans were prepared. The shuttle weaved through the Predator's defensive perimeter, narrowly avoiding detection as it slid past their massive warships and into the station's docking bay. The moment the shuttle touched down, the team disembarked swiftly, each member armed with cutting-edge weaponry designed to penetrate the Predator's defenses. They moved with precision, setting charges and planting sabotage devices along the station's core. The humans had learned quickly that time was not on their side. The Predators would soon realize they had been infiltrated, and once they did, they would fight back with everything they had. The tension in the air was palpable as the charges were set. Lieutenant Cole's hand hovered over the activation button, a single moment standing between them and the success or failure of the entire operation. 5 seconds, Cole murmured to himself. The countdown felt like an eternity. Then the moment came. He pressed the button. A deafening explosion shook the station and chaos erupted. The core of the station, now damaged beyond repair, began to destabilize. The Predators' control over their fleet was slipping away. The strike team had done their job. They had struck at the heart of the Predators' empire. But the danger wasn't over. As the team made their way back to the shuttle, enemy forces descended on them in full force. The alarms blared through the station, and the humans fought tooth and nail to make it back to their shuttle. The Predators, now frantic, unleash everything they had in a desperate attempt to stop them. The shuttle door closed just in time, and the team escaped into the blackness of space, barely avoiding a wave of enemy fire. The Predator station began to crumble behind them, its core erupting in a brilliant explosion. The humans had succeeded. Against all odds, they had crippled the Predators' command structure. As the shuttle flew back to the safety of their fleet, the survivors of the strike team were greeted as heroes. But there was no time for celebration. The battle was far from over. The Predators were still out there, and they would retaliate, however. With their central command station destroyed, their power was significantly weakened. The tide of the war had turned in the humans' favor. The Predators had learned a harsh lesson that day. The galaxy was not theirs to conquer without